reducing energy and reducing emissions is not the end that an organization or a leader is looking for. It's the means to an end. And we need to make sure we understand that.
Welcome to Smart Energy Voices, a podcast by Smart Energy Decisions featuring conversations with leaders of the energy transition and hosted by Smart Energy Decisions' own Deborah Channel. In each episode, Deborah digs deep with industry movers and shakers to reveal insights you can learn from in their stories, personalities, and visions for the future. Let's dive in.
Welcome. I'm Deborah Channel from Smart Energy Decisions. Thanks for joining us here today at Smart Energy Voices. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I hope you'll take the time to share it with a colleague or someone you know who will benefit from this content. We have a special episode today from the Heard at SED Forum series. At our most recent event, Trevor Joelson, Enterprise Energy Services Account Executive at Trane, told our audience, "Stop saying you can't find money for energy and sustainability projects." And he really meant it. He wants to challenge the notion that funding for decarbonization projects is out of reach. So in this presentation, Trevor will explore strategies for building a compelling business case and for accessing innovative funding so you can turn your sustainability vision into a reality. Let's get started.
I believe I get to be the first to formally wish you a happy Earth Day, everyone. What a beautiful venue for it, and what an appropriate forum for us to have as well to be able to discuss this. I want to give you a little bit of background into the genesis of this presentation specifically and why we chose to have this topic be the one that we presented on. So last year at this event in Houston, we were focused on the archetypes of different sustainability organizations. And at the end, Deborah asked the question, as she always does a good job doing, and everyone raised their hand and said the number one issue that we run into is getting money for our projects. So we decided that we should just hit that head on, and we should make a presentation that says, stop saying that, stop making that the answer to the question. So we've set this up to reflect back on the last year, the projects that we've been able to successfully get across the finish line, how we've seen our clients be able to get over that hurdle of actually getting money and be able to get things done within their organization. So if I'm successful today in the next 20 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the most attractive incentives that are out there, some of the free money that can help you get projects done. I really liked how Hallie set up about embedding sustainability in your organization. Google's a monster, but we all have an opportunity to embed sustainability in our organization. So we'll talk about some of the strategies for doing that. We're going to talk about who has money for you, aka structured financing as the fancy term for that. And then we're also going to break into some centralized funds for sustainability projects and share a case study of where we've seen that be successful. So before I do that, when I was prepping for this, I was thinking about creative deal making and ways that you get things done that you wanted. Anyone here from Toledo, Ohio? Can I get a hand raise? Any Toledoans? I have a Toledoan? Wonderful. Shout out to my fellow Toledoan that's out there. The lights are kind of bright, but I can see one Toledoan. So Monroe and Sylvania are the cross streets that I'm going to be talking about here. So I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and I really wanted a video game chair. One of those really cool chairs that you could sit in. It has the racing wheel so that when you're playing racing games, you could get it. But didn't have the money. My parents weren't going to buy it. So one of the ways that I was able to raise money was to go out and actually do lemonade stands. Pretty classic way for kids to be able to make money. But there's an in-between to this, and it's something that I feel good to get off my chest kind of finally in a public setting where the crime lies. So our strategy to get to the video game chair, my brother and I in Toledo, Ohio, anyone remember newspapers? Used to come to your house every Sunday, and you used to get those ads and they would tell you the deals for different locations, different retailers that were out there. We would always look for the Target one. And I actually think Target's here today, hopefully maybe in the room. So we would look for the Target ad and we would see which video games were on sale at Target. and which ones were really cheap. And we would go buy a video game for $20. We would then go take that video game to Toys R Us, which has since become bankrupt, and this might be the reason why, but they thought that video game was worth $50. So we would exchange that $20 video game for a $50 credit, and we would just be like, Grandma didn't know what games that she should get us, and we got these for our birthday, and we just need to return them, so we're sorry. So eventually we ran this scheme, and we were able to go from a lemonade stand to this beautiful video game chair. And we had a lot of fun on that video game chair in our youth in Toledo, Ohio. But if you ever are Toledo, Monroe, Sylvania are the cross streets, and you can see where the crime went down. I promise there's going to be a point to all this. We're going to use that framing and that thematic today around lemons to lemonade. This is kind of a boring quote, in my opinion. If you saw this, you're like, oh my God, he's going to talk about lemons to lemonade. That's such an overused phrase. I like this quote. This is the actual quote. There's a lot of really cool quotes out there that have like a secondary element to it that we don't pay attention to. But this guy, Napoleon Hill, he released a book called Think and Grow Rich in 1937. He was one of the original self-help authors. 1937. I was actually shocked to know that there were people that were doing like self-help stuff back then. But his quote is, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade and then sell it to all those who are complaining. And I really like that. So on the topic of complaining, we're going to complain a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the headwinds that we have in our organizations right now to get sustainability projects done. I don't want to give you all unicorns and ponies and say everything's easy to do right now. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to take out your phones. You can either scan the QR code or you can go to slido.com and put those numbers in. And we're going to go through and talk about what are the biggest headwinds that you are facing as an organization. I heard the word tariffs already, but it was in a more positive viewpoint. We're going to get to talk about that in the other viewpoint here as well. I know everyone's been waiting for that discussion today. We have a little bit of jockeying below, but it appears that competing capital priorities is far and away the biggest headwind that you have for getting projects done in your organization. Not shocked by that. Interesting to see it so far ahead, especially with the headlines that we have right now around tariffs and some other things. So these are the headwinds we're facing. The recipe for lemonade's pretty easy. I think that's what's beautiful about it. It's water, it's sugar, and it's lemon juice. So we're going to break this presentation into those three sections. We're going to talk about the water. What does an attractive investment look like within your organization? And how do you make sure you understand what an attractive investment is? We're going to do a little bit of a quick MBA course around that. The sugar is, where's there free money or someone else's money that's available for you to help get projects done, especially if you have those competing capital interests, because those competing capital interests may not have the same access to funding that you have. And then lemon juice goes back to the point of embedding sustainability or energy into your organization. How do you tie back to the true priorities of your business so that you can get projects done? But we'll start with H2O, the basics. This is when it can be really easy. An investment in an organization, if you boil it down, they're looking for two things. Understanding what the weighted average cost of capital is for that organization. What does it cost them to be able to capitalize a project? What are the expectations of the debt and equity of an organization for the returns of it? So understanding what your organization's weighted average cost of capital is one of the foundational elements to be able to have the conversations you need to have about making energy and sustainability projects an investment. The second part of the equation on the top is the rate of return. So let's get a rate of return that is greater than that cost of capital, the expectations that our organization has for a rate of return. But I like to ask the question and understand when we're talking to different companies, are you a 5, a 15, or a 25? And that's rate of returns. It's the expectations that you have for a rate of return for a sustainability program. Not everyone's a 5, a 15, or a 25. Some of you are probably sitting there and like, I'm a 30 or whatever it might be. Some might be blessed and they have a 0% rate of return. They just need to be able to break even on the investment. But generally, we see customers fall into these three buckets. You're either a 5, and you understand that you're making an investment in sustainability that may have some returns that aren't directly tied to the performance of weighted average cost of capital. More than likely, you're going to be in this category of a 15% or a 25%. So why that's important are these areas that you see highlighted below. So the first is, can energy savings alone help you meet that rate of return expectation? If you're a 5%, yeah, you can probably find an energy-based project that's going to hit your organization's rate of return. I can help you find that. There's probably a lot of people in this room that can help you find that. If you're a 15% rate of return, which frankly is where we see a lot of companies landing, it's a maybe. It's a maybe. Can energy savings help you get there? You may not be able to get everything that you're looking for in a project out of it, but you can probably build up a project that has some ECMs stacked together and gets you that 15% rate of return. And then the third one, I hear this from a lot of our friends in the industrial space. I need a 25% rate of return. And the answer is, heck no, you're probably not going to find that from an energy investment at the end of the day. These numbers are important for another reason as well, which is your ability to cash flow a project through structured finance. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more. But generally what it means is, can someone else's money come into play, and can you see immediate savings on your balance sheet? If you're only looking at projects that have a 5% rate of return, the answer is no. You're probably not going to find 5% money out there unless someone wants to correct me from the room, and we'd love to partner with you. But 15 and 25 become this magical number, because if you have a solution that provides a 15% or 25% rate of return to your business, that means someone else is more than likely prepared to infuse money into your business to help you capture that rate of return. And you can do it in a way that is cash flow positive to your OpEx from day 0. The last point where these lemons lie is how thoughtful you have to be about your site selection and the actual projects that you're doing. To the beginning point, actually, I thought about this at the gym this morning. I love analogies, obviously. But the first one, you can just take a machete and start chopping things. The middle one, you kind of need a pocket knife. You got to be a little bit more tactful. If you're in that 25% rate of return category, you really need a scalpel. You need to understand, I need to go to this site that has this asset in this system and do this very specific solution. So you have to be really, really targeted in going out and finding what you're going to do. All right, let's talk about the sugar side of things right now. Big numbers, $892 billion. That's what's been raised, according to some statistics, in the last 10 years to support the energy transition. There's numbers that'll say trillions and 500. But generally, there is a lot of money that companies have gone out there and raised to run energy and sustainability projects. So there are people that are pitching that there are energy and sustainability projects to be done that have good rate of returns for the people that they are doing this raise from. Generally, that $892 billion that was raised has seen about a 9% rate of return to it, is the statistic that we're seeing. So if we go back to those magic numbers, if you have a project that has a 10% rate of return, you're pretty much approaching break even of being able to take someone else's money and be able to run a project. If you can find greater rate of returns, you're able to take someone else's money and infuse cash back into your business. Now, I'm from Train. I think I forgot to say that, so apologies to the team that paid for us to be here. We get to be pretty agnostic in the financing of projects, and I'm just going to share a reality with you all, since we aren't in the financing of projects directly. What we have seen from our customers is when you go to a CFO and you say someone else is willing to pay for this, the CFO kind of like jockeys up a little bit and says, well, I'd rather make that investment than allow someone else to make that investment. I'll find you the money for this project. So there's this beautiful kind of scenario that takes place when you bring third-party financing to the table, is it challenges your own organization of, are we really prepared to invest in this Or is this an attractive investment that we'd rather take than give to someone else? Because your business doesn't want to give that investment up. Why would they want to give it to a third party that is out there for profit as well if it meets all the scenario? So it's a good kind of test of your organization's, their willingness to give money to the projects. So that's money that costs something to get to. There's also a lot of free money out there. The free money, we break it down into three basic things. You have the tax benefits that are out there, you have grants, and then you have incentives as well. Some of those are going to be very focused on individual technologies, and others are going to be more focused on the location where you're at. So for those of you that are running portfolios of locations, you need to be able to understand your systems and your sites and where they have access to all of this free money that's out there and connect to it to be able to run projects. So we wanted to hit on just a few that we've been really, really successful with and are excited about. I'm going to do some more hand-raising exercise. Manufacturers, who's with an industrial manufacturer in here? A couple hand raises. Keep it up if you have a site in Pennsylvania. Okay, we at least have one person in here. So right now there is a grant in Pennsylvania called RISE PA. RISE PA is actually money from the Inflation Reduction Act that was given to the state of Pennsylvania that is specifically for industrial decarbonization. And supposedly the money's already been given and it's not going to get pulled back. We're still waiting to see that. But the way that the state is doling out the money is somewhere between a 30 to 50% cost share of projects that decarbonize the industrial built environment. And it's a very broad definition. We've talked to these program administrators, they're like, yeah, lighting decarbonizes the industrial built environment. I'm like, good, great answer. Thank you for saying that. But solar, I know we have a lot of solar developers that are here. Solar is able to take advantage of that grant, and then you can take the ITC on top of it and you can stack it. So it gets really attractive. But beyond that, we also have the utility incentives. I think everyone in this room is pretty familiar with the PJM circumstances and the rise in price, which is a fun room to be in where most people understand that. Well, utility incentives are overdriving their incentive programs to be able to reduce peak load on the system. So right now, the First Energy programs are giving out 15 cents a kWh and $2.50 a kW, which are some of the more attractive utility incentives in the country. In Pennsylvania, which is a pretty low-cost utility market relatively before the PJM stuff happens, and you can stack it on top of all these other things. So you can be talking about a solar project. I think solar gets 8 cents a kilowatt hour. To be fair, this is for energy efficiency projects, but solar project that's getting 8 cents a kilowatt hour, it's getting a 40 to 50% tax credit, and then it's getting a 30 to 50% grant from the state. I can make that cash flow. Okay. Next location, Las Vegas. I'll just give a quick overview of what's happening there. So this actually comes from the Water Authority. The Water Authority is giving an incentive of $1,500 a ton to move from water-cooled technologies to air-cooled technologies. $1,500 a ton to be able to make that transition because they're worried about the water crisis in particular. So they want people to move away from traditional water-cooled or cooling towers, move to air-cooled. $1,500 a ton almost covers the cost of the equipment for us. So if you're at end-of-life equipment and you need to be making a transition, you have a state authority that is prepared to dole out $1,500 a ton to help you with that new equipment. Third one, electrification is going to be very in vogue, I imagine, over the course of the next day and a half. We are hosting a roundtable about it. We like to generally begin electrification conversations in New York State if we can. One of the reasons why is because of this clean heat program. The clean heat program gives $70 per MMBTU avoided for most electrification projects. That's across the entire state. It includes the city as well. So if you're looking to electrify and you're running into hurdles around the financials, the state of New York has created a massive incentive that's going to help you with the business case for electrification. On the point of electrification, I want to hit on one other technology, mostly because the people I trust in our organization keep telling me to pay attention to this. So geothermal is technology for heating and cooling that's been around for a very long period of time. but we're seeing some massive evolutions in geothermal technologies. And geothermal enables electrification in a way that gets over some of the traditional hurdles that we've been seeing. So one of the things to call out about geothermal is before the Inflation Reduction Act, there was an investment tax credit for geothermal, just like there was for solar. It was just a little bit lesser known. But they've kind of cleared the path on all the questions that come from the ITC for the geothermal side and everything that gets included and all the rules and regulations of it. So it's been a lot easier for us to kind of build the business case around the ITC for it. But let me give you some cool graphics. So this is how you used to do geothermal projects if you were looking to do heating and cooling. And then they started to introduce these inclined bore fields. And what happened as a change between those two is you used to have to do all of these holes and you needed all of this space and you were doing all of this drilling. It was massively capital intensive, but it also was just disruptive to the property itself. So with inclined bore fields, what happened is we were able to get more tonnage out of fewer drilling points. Still pretty capitally intensive, but we didn't have quite the disruption to the space. So what we've been seeing recently that really has everyone's attention is this groundwater heat exchange. So if you're looking to electrify, if you're looking to get to heat and do it in a way that is cost effective, this ground source geothermal is massively incentivized, both by the federal tax incentives, but then I called out one example of mass saves in the state of Massachusetts, where geothermal is one of, you look at utility incentives, normally geothermal is like the biggest one you'll see if you go through the full list, but there's some states where it's really attractive. So if you've been struggling with electrification issues, keep your eyes on the technology of groundwater geothermal because we anticipate that to have some breakthroughs. All right, so we're rounding out here. I want to just share a learning that I've had in my career and a quote that I've gotten from my boss that stuck with me. I'm probably not going to say the quote word for word, but generally it's that no organization or leader is looking to buy energy or emissions reduction. And what that simply means is that reducing energy and reducing emissions is not the end that an organization or a leader is looking for. It's the means to an end. And we need to make sure we understand that. I hear so many people in our organization that are like, we reduced the EUI by 32%. And I'm like, okay, like great, but what does that mean to the business or the owner of that? Like it is something to be celebrated. So we're going to come back to that and just make sure that we understand what the actual ends are that an organization's looking for in this lemon juice category. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to just ask you. So if we can do one more Slido, I'd love to hear from your organization or the clients that you're working about or working with. What do you think is the most critical end that they are going after? I kind of regret this poll already because I know what maybe I don't know what the answer is going to be. Please surprise me. I'd love to be surprised. So the options for the ends, and this is what we see from the most of our clients from a leadership and enterprise level, what the highest level ends that they're aiming for: profitability, customer demands, risk mitigation, reputation, and then I guess we don't have a lot of industrials in the room for the safety side of things here. I expected safety to at least have a few takers, just so I can sleep at night. These are all projects that we've done in the last year and how we're tying them back to a different type of end for the organization to help get it across the finish line. I'm not going to read anything off of this slide to you. What I'm going to say is I've really learned that sustainability professionals, for them to be successful in their organization, you are a connector of all of these groups. That's the reality. You are the one that is bringing all of these individuals together to understand what their goals are and how you can use those goals to help you get projects across the finish line in the name of your role and your commitments to sustainability. So I guess my guidance generally is make sure you have an understanding across the organization of how you can tap into all these different stakeholders to understand from an enterprise level what they're looking to achieve and how you can take each of your projects to be able to tie to it. I'll give one example, the safety one, since that's 0% of the crowd's interest here. So I'll focus on that. But heat pumps, yesterday at the happy hour, we get asked about heat pumps a lot. That's a very popular thing to ask Train about. A good example of how we were able to make a heat pump project work where we were replacing natural gas boilers was we were able to replace a boiler, a piece of equipment, with a heat pump that can do the heating, but it also offers the cooling. And this was an area that it was a heat-stressed area that had some heat-related events tied to safety. So because of that, they were able to justify going with a heat pump, going with electric heating, because they were able to get the cooling. And they weren't focused on the energy costs. If they were looking purely at the energy costs and the ROI, they would have never introduced cooling into the space. But they were focused on the safety of that individual building, and the heat pump allowed them to be able to get a safety outcome while replacing a core piece of infrastructure. So I want to just end here with an example of one of our clients that's really pulled this all together really nicely. I don't know if she's made it yet, but Christina is getting a WISE Award tomorrow, and I believe she's also on a panel as well. But EnerSys is a company that manufactures batteries. They mostly make like forklift batteries is their number one claim to fame. But what they've done is they've understood that in an electrified economy, they are a winner. If we move to an all-electric economy, we're going to be using a lot of batteries. So they understand from a sales side of thing and from a reputation side what it means to their business, and they recognize that they need to be able to drink their own Kool-Aid. So what they've done is they've dedicated $20 million of funding to sustainability within their built environment, and then they've built mechanisms to be able to be stewards of that fund that they were able to develop. So our contact's first responsibility was go get the money, go build the business case. And now it's stewarding a fund in a way that shows the returns for that investment. So they did two things. They set up an internal carbon price to be able to look at projects that were going to eliminate fossil fuels and support their commitments to Scope 1. And then they set up a revolving green fund, which was basically taking those rate of returns from all of the energy efficiency projects they were going to do and allow it to keep rolling and allow that $20 million to go further. This is all outlined in their climate action plan roadmap. I highly encourage you guys to dig into it if you're looking for good examples of corporate leadership. I think I've run out of time. Really enjoyed this. Always love these conferences. So thank you. Appreciate everyone.
Our thanks to Trevor Joelson and the team at Train for making this great presentation possible. And thanks, as always, to our listeners for engaging with our content and being part of the Smart Energy Decisions community. If you enjoyed the episode or found it useful, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform and tell your colleagues and peers about it. And don't forget to leave a review. We really want to know what you think. And to learn more about how you can become part of our online and in-person content, visit our website at smartenergydecisions.com. We're always excited to share these presentations from leaders of the energy transition. And we do that in this podcast, on our website, and at our events. And it's all in the interest of helping you make those smart energy decisions.
Thanks for listening to Smart Energy Voices. Digest the insights from today's episode and take action on the ideas that have inspired you. Join us every other Friday for conversations with smart energy leaders that keep up to date with trends and happenings in the energy transition. Visit smartenergydecisions.com to register for our daily newsletter, explore our content and events, and become part of our Smart Energy Decisions community.